Joe, I got to start with this and say this today with the Michigan stuff. Let me just run through what happened today, and then I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
So here we go. In case you missed it, Michigan was in the news today. Pete Thamel, Joe, reporting a lot of things, that there were deleted texts from now head coach Sherrone Moore to Connor Stallions, then was retrieved. Feels like a smoking gun there. It looks like he could be liable in a lot of the things that went down last year, but was the interim when Jim Harbaugh was suspended and now is the permanent head coach. He is facing multiple level 2 violations, a repeat violator, of the NCAA if this were to pass. 13 potential future opponents. Joe, will come back to that, that they filmed, 58 games that they filmed. And I think the most damning that was in the statement from the NCAA on a potential letter of notice of allegations is that Harbaugh was 49-26 before Stallions became on staff. 40-3 he was after. Joe, I got to admit, I'm pretty pissed off. Can I tell you why? Because I gave them the benefit of the doubt in saying, is that really that guy on the sidelines? Is it really him? Or were they really doing this? Because I go into stuff, I really try to go into things innocent until proven guilty. However, it's starting to be more blatant and obvious that all of this happened. Okay, the NCAA proved that it was Connor Stallions on the sidelines. By the way, NCAA comes out and says, we have no idea who gave him a sideline pass. Stop right there. You know who gave him a sideline pass? The coaching staff.
It was the guy who just got removed from the Central Michigan coaching staff.
Okay, again, coaching staff, easiest solvable thing of all time. Joe, it is pretty obvious. I saw this Ohio State podcast. Forgive me, I don't know their name. But I led off with this on AYS last week. Joe, they're breaking down film from 2022 of Connor Stallions standing behind the defensive coordinator mentor saying, run right, looking at their signals, looking at a play card saying, run right. And then you have two safeties that are blitzing down to stop the run against Ohio State. Joe, Mentor may be a good DC. He ain't that goddamn good of being a DC. My point in all of this is it's blatant obvious, and I got to ask the honest question. Is their national championship a joke?
Okay, so first of all, I'm already way past that point what you're talking about. It was obvious that they did it. I think from the jump, it was pretty clear that they did it before the notice of allegations does come out and this article came out. I never doubted that they did it for a second. Where I was an apologist and where I have received criticism from opposing fan bases is that I don't think what they did is really that big of a deal because it is something that is consistently done. We're rehashing the whole argument, the old argument, Blake. This is August. We're rehashing it, and I knew that this was going to happen. What they did was not a big deal because it is something that is done across college football. They just did it more effectively. They just did it more effectively and more deliberately than anybody else has done it. But the whole takeaway, I think, from this is, at the end of the day, what is the deserving severity of their punishment? There's clearly, as I said earlier in the lead-in,
I'd strip them of a national title.
I don't think that is completely warranted.
No, it is
I think
warranted.
that's an extreme reaction.
You're going to have to convince me now that they have legitimate, and I mean legitimate evidence that they filmed and got 13 potential future opponents. They didn't say actual opponents. They said future opponents, which there's things that have been investigated between South Carolina and Tennessee and potentially Michigan sharing some of that information with South Carolina. Joe, how do I know that they didn't have shit on Ohio State? Clearly they did. How do I know that they didn't have – hold on. How do I know that they didn't have shit against Alabama? How do I know that? Because this is what we do know. We also know that last year, all of that data was not gone. You mean you're going to convince me that?
Wait. He pulled them. They wouldn't be. Wait, Michigan wouldn't be that stupid to.
It's not Michigan.
In the middle of all of this.
No,
to then go back to that information.
No, but the NCAA came out in the investigation and said when Connor Stallions got caught, he pulled all the data. He brought him to a coach's house, the intern's house, the house of interns. Came back and hold on. Came back and retrieved it. And you're going to now tell me that Connor Stallions, who still went to football games, who still was at games, Joe, he was at the Rose Bowl. He took a picture and posted it online of him at the Rose Bowl. And you're going to tell me that there still wasn't shady shit going on. No, it's time to lay down the hammer.
Just because that information was shared right at the beginning of this being discovered does not mean that they used that information for the rest of the season. If that comes out in the investigation, I'll take my word back. But they would have to be so goddamn stupid to try and go.
That's like telling me a dime piece walks through the door and I'm not going to take her on a date when she walks up to me and says, "What's up, Daddy?"
Okay. If you're for a perfect example, if you're caught, I don't know, if somebody's caught selling drugs or somebody's caught laundering money, they're going to stop doing that if they're being investigated for said crime. They're not going to keep doing it if they're known.
Psychopaths will not stop.
Also, Elks, to this point, they shared the information with other schools. That is a very key important part of this. Other schools knew that they were doing this. Most of the country clearly knew that they were doing this, or a good portion of it, because otherwise they wouldn't be sharing this information with those programs. I think it's just total BS that this concept of the way that they were doing it is so wrong. You know what happens and what was brought up during this whole process was how if you steal the signs of one team by watching film through the angle that you set up your camera, and then you decipher those signals that you can then go share it with your buddy who's on a different coaching staff to then have for their upcoming opponent. That happens across college football. The sharing of stolen signs happens across college football.
But you and I both know that there's no film of teams giving other teams film and their signals of other programs.
What?
The only way that Joe, when you break down an athlete in college and you're watching film, which is the same coach's film that these coaches are allowed to watch, these players are allowed to watch. Is there ever been any film of you seeing coaches giving hand signals on the sideline and you being in a situation where
how did Brent Venables, who was notorious for sign stealing, how did he steal signs?
But he's not on trial here.
But what he did is the same goddamn thing. It's the same goddamn thing. It is something that has just naturally been accepted.
Hole of Brent Venables. We can't go down the rabbit hole of this guy.
He's the same. He's the same person who's done. What do you mean we can't? We're talking about a murder trial here. We can't look at other examples of murder. Like what?
No. At some point, you got to come back and say, "Can we talk about them? What they did? I don't care about what Brent Venables did. If I'm Michigan, or
he did the same thing. We're talking about the concept of stealing signs."
Okay, Joe.
Clemson won national championships.
Hold on. Do you really believe that Ohio State fans are going to allow you to say that they care about when they watch this clip about what happened with Brent Venables? No, they want to know that Sherrone Moore also was negligent in all of this, sending 52 text messages to Connor Stallion that he deleted and then had to go pay to get them re-put on his phone so that he could hand it over, and which makes it even more incompetent that he legitimately gave them a working phone.
Well,
why
okay,
would
also
you do that?
Just a side, not tangent on this, but the biggest thing that I think I come away from this is less about is what they did wrong or not. They're screwed. Like that's whatever the punishment is, if it is as severe as vacating wins. Wait 1 second. If it's as severe as them vacating wins or as minimal as game suspensions, whatever it ends up being, this is a lot more serious than I think that we thought originally last week in terms of how the NCAA is looking at it. They're clearly out to get them. I'm not saying that it's unjustified. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm just trying to point out here is that Michigan, it's going to be a big hammer that's brought down on them. Forget the argument that we were just having for a second. The talking point here is now the NCAA is not going to play with this. That article that Pete Thamel wrote very clearly illustrated how aggressively this is going to be handled. I mean, they moved pretty damn quickly for something that is elaborate as this to have a potential punishment coming up, or not a potential punishment, but the full notice of allegations that they are able to prove what they did wrong.
What you keep bringing up their punishment. What do you think their punishment should be?
I think that it should just be a multi-game suspension for Sherrone Moore. I think that is
all.
fair.
That's all.
I don't think vacating wins is a completely fair thing to do because
I agree with you on the vacated wins
because they're just going to step up and say that all of these other programs are doing a variation of what we did. Why do we have to vacate wins? That's what they're arguing.
No, I don't like vacating wins because of completely different circumstance. The games were played on the field, but I don't mind national championships getting revoked when you cheated. Like if it comes out to pass that it did Joe, come on. You're not going to be able to convince me that they didn't still have stuff on other teams. I'm sorry, you can't. You cannot convince me that when they made their playoff run. And Joe, here's the damning thing. Here's a very damning thing. If you're Harbaugh, think about this. He was 49-26 before Connor Stallions was there. After Connor Stallions was on the staff at Michigan, Joe, he went 40-3. 40-3. So there comes a point where you don't want to vacate wins. Well, Joe, did Harbaugh become Nick Saban overnight?
Understandable. Okay, that part is understandable.
If you don't want to vacate wins, if you don't want to go through this national championship strip, which is fine, it happened. I get it. But at the same time, the dude legit became a top 2 head coach in the country.
We can't act like we can't already act like he wasn't an established coach. This isn't somebody who came out of the woodwork. He was a winner at Stanford. He was a winner with the 49ers. State.
Before they beat Ohio State and got to a playoff, what were we talking about with them?
We were talking about how Harbaugh was underperforming.
And he shouldn't be on the hot seat. That was a legitimate take that everybody had because he wasn't meeting their expectations. All of a sudden, Joe, they became a prestige program overnight. Let me remind you of something very quickly. Georgia had the same exact record that they did.
Okay, but then we need to have the same energy when we're talking about programs that are known for doing this. And again, I'm going to bring up Brent Venables and I'm going to bring up what he did for Clemson. Because that was talked about when they were winning national titles. And that was overnight. That absolutely was overnight. Their turnaround, they were never a national championship.
Joe, their defense is still really good. Did they still have a top 10 defense last year?
They are, but they're not. Were they a top 10 defense? They are, but they're not the same as the same level that they were on that national championship run. They were unstoppable in some of those games that they had when they were winning national titles.
Did the NCAA hit him with cheating?
No.
Okay.
No, because there was no rivalry as vindictive as the one that they have with Ohio State that was going to try and do this.
Well, let me ask you this. Where's your proof on
It's talked about it by everybody. It was talked about on the goddamn broadcast of those games.
Okay. Where is your proof that, so for example, I'm legitimately telling you that we have proof on Michigan, and you want to go back to Venables. There is no proof on Venables that we have at the current moment, is there? No.
There's not currently proof of.
Oh, Joe,
wait. There's no proof because they weren't investigated, because they didn't need to be investigated, because it's a concept that is done constantly across college football.
Again, it's not my responsibility for whatever reason. And here's another thing. It was during an old administration with the NCAA. There's new people coming in. It's not my fault somebody chose not to enforce something. But you know what else I don't have? I don't have anybody at Clemson on an opposing team sideline. I don't have any one of their staff doing that. None. Zero. Zilch. I had Connor Stallions. I have Harbaugh as a top 3 head coach in the country.
He obviously did it. He obviously did it. That's not the conversation.
So then what's your penalty? A couple of game suspension for a coach that we know violated it?
I think that if Sherrone Moore is suspended, it should be for the entirety of the season, if not half of the season, because of how deliberately and aggressively they tried to cover it up. That's where I think that the biggest part of this is less to do with what the crime was, but their diligence in trying to cover it up. That was what was brought up in the article as well, is how they deliberately tried to skate the NCAA and tried to hide as much as possible. They failed at it. Hilariously, terribly, they failed at it. That is where the true crime is trying to cover it up. But the whole point that I'm keep arguing with here is, how much does that really help you? That having signs is something, again, that is done across college football. It is not something that helps you. It's not something that helps you this much that you improve your winning percentage that extremely. It helps. It absolutely helps. Ohio State isn't innocent in this. They steal signs. Every team steals fucking signs.
Joe, I wholeheartedly disagree with you on that.
Just like every team tampers.
Okay, so you have Connor
violates every rule.
All right, that's bullshit.
The ones who do it the best are the ones who get caught.
Okay, but you know what I don't have, again, until you start providing it, is Connor Stalions telling the DC mentor, looking at the signs at Ohio State and saying, run right. He comes up to him, grabs him, says, run right.
I'm not doubting that happened.
Hold on, goddammit. You have him sending a double safety blitz into the run on a critical third down call. Critical third down call.
That operation is the same for every team that steals signs. That operation is the same for every team that steals signs.
You are too naive.
It's not hard to create dummy signals. It's not. If you know that the team you're playing is stealing signs, develop new signs. Confuse them.
Okay. It's not my responsibility on that either. But you can't also say that you don't have – Joe, even if you're saying the victim – Ohio State in this scenario, well, you need to do something better, honey.
It's not just Ohio State, first of all. That's my biggest problem with this whole thing.
Ohio State in this, hey, you know what? You did nothing wrong, but you need to change your ways.
First of all, wait. First of all, during this whole saga, wasn't it brought up that Ohio State was sharing signs with other teams in the Big Ten? Am I misremembering that? Is that not what was part of this whole thing
alleged,
that was brought up?
And you know good and goddamn well, hey, who reported that about Ryan Day and Ohio State? Oh, that's right, a Michigan alum. And just like what they were doing during the national championship run, they're going to defend this. What the big thing that we should probably be talking about is, what do you do with Sherrone Moore? You said suspend him for the whole year. I got to be honest. Joe, if he's got a show cause, which was literally put in that article, then every other coach that has show causes, he better sit more than a year. I mean, think about this. Think about this for just one quick second.
Wait, hold on. The only thing is that the only argument it's slightly against that is, and that whoever's defending him, I don't know how that's going to work. The pushback on that is, theoretically the punishment that would be delivered to Harbaugh essentially is going to get thrown on his head, because it's not just Sherrone Moore. You know, it's not only Sherrone Moore.
No, and like I told you when he was hired, like I told you when Sherrone Moore was hired, why would you hire anybody as the head coach of that staff when you have that shit that was going on? I know that they probably felt like that they did some backdoor politicking. Okay, Sherrone, we ain't going to fire you. You're going to have to take the heat. But take the heat, and we're going to give you your first head coaching job.
That's why they kept him, because nobody would have wanted to step into this situation.
Oh, fine. Completely understand that. But you still, if you're wanting to progress, you still can't do that. I'm old enough to remember that there was a coach that would do something like that. His name was Matt Rule. And he did it at Baylor after Art Briles and all that shit happened. And then all of a sudden, Matt Rule became one of the biggest known names in all of the sport. All I am saying here to you is, I don't know if it's not a fireable offense.
They're not going to fire him.
Michigan has to clean house.
They would have done
when all of that shit with college
they would have fired him when it happened. If it was
they wouldn't have. They've been covering it up too.
He won him a national title. Why would they fire him? They're not going to fire him. It's not a fireable offense.
Okay. Well, then you go down with the ship then. But here's what I will tell you. There have been other programs, specifically in the SEC, who they're not going to get, their interest level is not that high at the current moment. But then they look at all of their schools and the shit that the NCAA came down upon them. And this is probably worse to some extent than everything that everybody else was doing. So what? You paid players to get there. That's more of what people are all doing than anything versus what's going on right now in cheating to win games. Joe, this happened on field. Let me tell you this. This is my last point on this before we get to the Big 12. God, this is going to be an hour and 20 hour show. Let me get to this very quickly.
Okay.
It also has been reported that Michigan, some of the coaching staff gave some of the coaching staff at South Carolina the Tennessee signs because Michigan thought that they were going to have to play Tennessee in the playoff. That was a potential contender. You legitimately, in that game with South Carolina versus Tennessee, have a quarterback that could have been a first-round pick if he doesn't tear his ACL in Hendon Hooker. If you're Hendon Hooker, explain everything to Hendon Hooker. If you're going to give down punishment, ask Hendon Hooker about it. Because, Joe, his entire career could have been lost as a potential first-round pick in that game.
Well, the only other response to that is that if you're going to be aggressive in punishing Michigan, you have to be aggressive in punishing any other team that benefited from this.
Fine.
That's my only take on that.
But do you disagree? Like, if this comes out that Michigan was sharing, and it for sure comes out that Michigan shared information with South Carolina about Tennessee because they thought Tennessee was going to be a playoff
should be punished. South Carolina.
Well, not only that, not South Carolina. If you're Hendon Hooker, then what? You knew when to send the backside blitz. You knew what our plays were. You knew what was going on here. Joe, as a parent, I would be more than pissed.
Well, what was I don't remember the exact play, so I just don't remember what happened on the play that he got hurt.
He checked to something. Okay, it was a fake pump right, and he was supposed to come back or something stupid. Okay, a hypo type of play. And then he got wrapped up in the knee or tried to get out, then tore his ACL, whatever.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. They blew the doors off what probably was the second best team in the SEC that year.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's
South
not shocking. By the way, my dig at South Carolina before we move on to Big 12, I am not shocked that is what it was required of them to beat Tennessee, by the way. Because they hold by that. They hold by that goddamn game as proof of why Shane Beamer's a great coach.
Joe, Spencer Rattler had the best game of his life, or they cheated.
All right, let's get to the Big 12. We went too long on this.
I know, but I'm going to tell you, I'm pissed off.
This video is sponsored by the online fitness training camp presented by Chris Gates Fitness. When I first started talking about Chris, about partnering with our show, not only was I excited to have a fitness sponsor for our pod, but more importantly, when I found out about how he can help people achieve their goals, I was even more bought in, because when the football season starts, it is so tough to stay on top of things and also to be able to enjoy yourself on Saturdays when it's game day. With Chris Gates Fitness's online training camp, you're going to be able to effectively stay focused, consistent, burn fat, build muscle, and do it with a like-minded community of individuals working towards the same thing. On top of this, you're going to be able to get direct coaching from Chris and the ability to ask him questions with an access to a live Q&A where you can get direct personalized support from Chris himself. Don't wait any longer. If you're trying to get in shape during this fall and you want to be able to do it with the right support system, head on over to chrisgatesfitness.com/training camp or click the link in the description. And you need to do it today because you can get the first month. Personal training is expensive, folks. The first month for only $10 when you use that code RuffinoJoe. Don't wait any longer. Head on over there. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. Bet online, where the game starts.